Welcome to Tycoon Live. My name is Mateen Syed. We have the pleasure of welcoming Elon Musk. He is the chairman of not one, but three companies: SpaceX, SolarCity, and of course, Tesla Motors. And in his earlier life, not very long ago in the 90s, he started and sold two companies, Zip2, and the company that changed the very nature of how we transact online, PayPal. And for a young man, it's an amazing feat. He's going to turn only 37 next month. Elon, welcome.
Thank you.
So off the bat, let's talk about Tesla Motors and the car you drove today. Everybody's talking about it. 220 miles in one charge, 0 to 60 in 4 seconds.
Under 4 seconds. Yes.
Under 4 seconds. And 2 cents a mile. I think
yes.
we would love to have that car. It's going to cost us a bit, over 100 grand.
Yes.
And it's a long line. Of
Yes.
course, the celebrities have already signed up.
Yes.
So you have 1,000 already pre-booked.
Yes.
You went into production in March this year, I think, general production.
That's correct.
Why the money? Why the wait?
Well, the reason it costs over $100,000 right now is because the technology is new and it's still at small scale of production. So the idea is that we start off with the sports car, and it's initially expensive, but then we're working on Model 2, Model 3, Model 4, and with each subsequent model we bring the price down and we make the functionality of the car better. So Model 2 is a large 4-door sedan with lots of cargo space. You can seat as many as 5 adults, maybe even a scenario where there's 6 adults that can sit in the car. And it's going to have a price which is around $59,000 before any tax incentives. So it's possible tax incentives could bring that price down to $55,000. And then Model 3 will be even lower cost. And so we want to really drive the cost of the vehicles to mass market as soon as possible, because at the point at which the price of the car is comparable with that of other gasoline cars, and you still have the 2 cents a mile, where you can spend maybe $4 or $5 and travel over 200 miles, the equivalent of price of 1 gallon of gas, then at that point, even if you don't care about the environment, you will want to buy this car. And that's really our goal, is to get there as soon as possible.
We want to talk a little bit about SpaceX. You're making it economical for a lot of us people who want to travel to space, hopefully one day. You had one Falcon 1, Falcon 2. Can you shed some more light on it?
Sure. Well, we have 2 rockets and 1 spacecraft, the Falcon 1, Falcon 9, and then the 2 rockets, and then Dragon is the spacecraft. And initially we're launching satellites, and then we'll be taking cargo to the space station, and then we'll be upgrading that capability to carry people to orbit and eventually beyond orbit. The great breakthrough that we're hoping to achieve is to build the first fully reusable rocket, and that's never been achieved in rocketry before, and that would be one of the great historic milestones if we're able to do that. Right. And that's really what will allow the cost of space travel to become much, much less than it is right now. Because you can imagine if this was air travel or really any mode of transport, boats, cars, horses, anything, if you could only use it once, then people would not use that mode of transportation because like a 747 costs hundreds of millions of dollars, and yet you can buy a round-trip ticket from LA to London for $500. And that's because that plane can be used tens of thousands of times, and so the capital cost of the plane is a small component of your ticket cost. But if a 747 could only make 1 flight, then suddenly you'd have hundreds of millions of dollars of capital that has to be paid for by the passengers, and that would make it completely unaffordable. And that's the situation in rocketry today.
Okay. To go back to your days of PayPal, being a successful entrepreneur twice, what made you come to green tech and at such a huge length?
Well, I think the transition to a sustainable energy economy is one of the most important problems facing humanity. Even if you take the environment out of the equation, the fact that there are limited supplies of oil and coal and natural gas mean that we have to find alternatives. And as we're seeing with the price of oil, which is incredibly expensive, and it's going to get worse because we've got growing economies like India, like China, which are growing like gangbusters, and everybody wants a car and everybody wants to, you know, have appliances and all things, and that's a reasonable expectation. I think they should have those things, but it places a huge burden, increased burden on the demand for energy worldwide, and so we must find renewable sources, or the economies will grind to a halt, even if the environment doesn't get destroyed. And so it's just a very, very important, it's the most important problem we face in the 21st century, really. When people talk about things like poverty and disease, and yes, these things are certainly important, but how will we solve them if we have no energy?
Right. You know, after University of Pennsylvania, you came to Stanford. So I was just talking to you, you didn't even get to attend a class, and you started Zip2. In Silicon Valley, it's probably not an exception. So among the trades, we have dropouts.
Right.
What other traits do you think you personally have that propels you to be such a successful entrepreneur in varied industries? Where do you are actually good at or better at than other entrepreneurs? It's very important for, I think, audience to understand, well,
Sure.
you know, the traits.
Well, it's dependent upon me giving an accurate self-analysis. It's difficult to do self-analysis, you know. Once you're sort of too close to yourself by definition. But I think, well, people do not think critically enough. I mean, critical thinking is a skill in short supply, where people take too many things as, they assume too many things to be true without sufficient basis in that belief. It's very important that people closely analyze what is supposed to be true, and try to build up, try to say, let's analyze things from first principles, not by analogy or not by convention. If you assume things are true by convention, which is actually what most people do, then it's difficult to gain insight into how things can be bettered. So, you know, in any argument or any sort of train of thinking, you want to make sure that the underlying premises are valid and applicable, and you know, and then in reaching a conclusion, that the conclusion you're reaching is necessarily driven by the underlying premises and the interconnection between those premises. That may seem like a really simple thing to say, but most people don't do that. So it's really the foundation of rational thought.
Right.
Let's see, what else? I think also people tend to overweight risk on a personal level. It's one thing if you've got, you know, a mortgage to pay and kids to support, and that if you were to deviate from your job, that, well, how are you going to feed your family and pay the rent? And okay, that's understandable. But let's say you're young and you're just coming out of college or coming out of high school or whatever. What do you risk? You know, you're not going to starve. I mean,
right.
It's really certainly not in any kind of modern economy. It's so easy to earn enough money just to live somewhere and eat food. You could, you know, that's I mean, very easy to do. So I don't know what, you know, what are they afraid of? They're mostly afraid of failure, I think, or but people should be less risk averse when there's not much at risk.
You know, you're a young father, 5 kids, 3 dogs.
3 dogs, actually. Yes.
How do you find time when you do find time, how do you spend quality time with your family? I mean, 5 kids, it's not easy.
Well, it tends to be different things with different parts of the family. With my wife, we like to go out to movies, go out to, you know, if there's try a new restaurant. I love food. I love food too much. I love Indian food, by the way. I love it. It's great.
Any particular dish you like from Indian food? Chicken
well,
tikka
I like
masala?
I mean, I like yeah, it's sort of a little cliche, but you know, I like it all. You know, I was in India actually last year because India hosted the International Astronautical Congress.
Right.
So I was in Hyderabad and then did the Golden Triangle and all that.
I come from Hyderabad, by the way.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. So it's a great center for space, actually, in India. So had a great time. Really enjoyed it a lot, actually.
Good.
Fantastic food. Wow.
Well, you're truly an inspiration for many of us. It's a pleasure having you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, we have had the pleasure of listening to Elon Musk. You have been watching this on Tycoon Live. Do not forget to watch many more interviews coming up on mytycon.org. Thank you.